At the Roundtable on Decarbonisation and the Pricing of Road Transport, organised by the ITF, we were revisiting fundamental questions regarding vehicle and road user taxation at times when fuel tax, a mainstay of the taxation of the sector, is rapidly declining. Funding the gap in declining fuel tax is a challenge, but at the same time an opportunity to change the way we tax transport. We realize that if these taxes are not replaced, the use of cars is likely to increase greatly as the marginal cost falls, undermining our sustainable transport objectives. The objectives of transport policy have been expanding, including or giving more weight to objectives such as providing accessibility for all, decarbonising, and providing safer, healthier and more livable urban environments. This obviously raises questions about what role various taxes and charges applied to vehicles and road users should play in trying to achieve these objectives and how these can be appropriately balanced and accepted in practice. In the roundtable discussion, it was clear that we should use this tax reform process to internalize as much external cost associated with vehicle use as possible. It was also clear that there is a great difference in the external cost of traffic between rural and urban areas, and despite decarbonisation, the congestion part of the traffic cost will continue to grow in series if we do not act. At the same time, it is of great importance to address accessibility and equity, for example by providing more affordable and sustainable alternatives to car usage in cities with an investment in public transport systems. Distance-based road user charge is the general path forward in the road user tax reform, but we will have to start with simple technology and simple approaches. It might be tempting to wait for the perfect technology, but we learned from Singapore that the technology for GPS-based distance charge has not been yet implemented, and there are still issues that need to be resolved. We had a presentation on how areas in Australia have implemented or are planning on implementing a distance-based road user charge for electric and hybrid vehicles with quite a simple approach. The same goes in Iceland, where we are working on a complete road pricing and tax reform, and the general plan is to implement a quite simple distance-based road charging scheme with annual odometer readings for all vehicles. It seems that the general road user is not that familiar with the tax he's currently paying, and that can make the reform discussion even more complicated. We had a presentation on our model assuming a phase-in of distance-based charging while keeping the fuel taxes in Slovenia. And the roundtable also discussed how a transition in road user charging can be acceptable and simple at the same time. A four-step phasing method was introduced, and in terms of acceptability, it might be necessary to have a stepwise reform rather than pushing on a one-step tax reform in this complicated field. A new study in the UK that was presented shows that there is a broad agreement on the need to reform vehicle taxation and quite a support to the distance-based charging approach, described as pay-as-you-go method. It also indicates an agreement on using road transport revenue locally, having a single national system in the UK with consistent and transparent local top-ups in the cities where an extra charge to tackle congestion and higher external cost of car traffic can be added to the national system. The presentations and the discussion at the roundtable are of great value for us in Iceland. As I said earlier, we are planning a quite simple distance-based road charging scheme with annual odometer readings. At the same time, we're analysing and planning a cordon-based road user charge for the capital area. It's based on a transport pact agreed upon by the state and the municipalities in the area, where we have agreed on investing in a mixture of roads, public transport and bicycle infrastructure for the next 15 years. Half of the capital cost of the new infrastructure in the pact is supposed to be financed with a road user charge that we call the Reykjavik Sustainable Mobility Charge. It is clear from the transport policy for the Reykjavik region and the agreement that the road user charge in the area is not only intended to generate revenue for local transport infrastructure investment. It is at the same time intended to decrease congestion, at least future congestion, increase efficiency of all transport systems, push for a modal shift, and decrease environmental impacts of car traffic. As I said in the beginning, the objectives of transport policy have been expanding, giving more weight to objectives such as accessibility and decarbonizing, while providing safer, healthier and more livable cities. With the foreseen fiscal gap left with the declining fuel tax, there is more pressure on tax reform than before, and we have a great opportunity to rethink how we tax transport, how we use incentives and disincentives to reach our transportation, climate and quality of life goals at the same time. It is a complicated task, but I'm quite certain that we will succeed.